Hi, and welcome everyone to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. Today we are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. As always, I'm so excited to be here with you. And again, welcome to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. And of course, as you just heard, we're broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is available on 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Please be sure and join us in the various chat rooms. We're all over social media. And this way you can connect with us and ask whatever questions you may like. So a big thanks to United Public Radio Network. So we all live busy lives, and we're always searching for tools and practices to help us cut through the noise and align with our purpose and feel genuinely vibrant. We often talk about raising our vibration. But what if the most powerful ancient allies we need to have to do this have been right beneath our feet all along? Today, we're honored and excited to speak with Jenny Seabell. She is a spiritual intuitive and author who does not just treat crystals as beautiful objects, which they are, but as powerful sentient guides, her spirit crystals, ready to partner with us on our deep journey of self-discovery. Her acclaimed book, The Power of Spirit Crystals, Activating Your Highest Vibrational Self, offers a radical structured approach that links 6 specific high vibrational quartz to ancient wisdom and powerful archetypes, providing a blueprint to healing past lives and wounds and stepping fully into your soul's potential. So, of course, we have Oliver barking in the background. I think everybody's pretty much used to that. So, in this conversation, we're going to take a deep dive exploring how to genuinely commune with these stone people and how to unlock the gifts of our inner alchemist and manifester, and how you can use their energy to finally activate the highest, most authentic version of yourself. So let's welcome Jen. Jen, hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here.
Very nice to meet you, Jenny. Very nice. So I want to get started by having you talk about yourself and how you arrived at the place that you're at today. So I'm going to step aside for a minute or two, and you can give us a summary of your life experience so far, okay?
Okay, sounds good. So I have probably always been on a spiritual path, just like everybody, right? Even people use the term spiritual awakening. That's a very common term right now as a way of kind of explaining why suddenly they decided to pursue spirituality or something like that. But I think we all are born on that path. And it's just different parts of our lives kind of reflect different things. And I think as we kind of come earthside or incarnate, right, there are certain kind of bus stops along the way that we can choose to get more spiritual or not. And I think when someone says, I have this spiritual awakening, it's one of those bus stops that their soul had already signed up for ahead of time, and they took it. They took that opportunity. And I think a lot of people have multiple spiritual awakenings. I don't think that everybody has one big kind of aha, I went to India and I saw the light, kind of a moment. I think it's more like little things throughout their lives, and it culminates. And then what I'm finding is that a lot of people, once they hit their 40s or up, we have more of ability to focus on ourselves again. Career often will like slow down, children grow, and we start to kind of go, okay, what's next? And I think it's a natural kind of progression. So I would say that I was always interested in spirituality. I was born and raised Catholic in New Jersey. And I was very close with my grandparents. In fact, my grandparents raised me for my first 5 years. And I would go to church every Sunday. And then we go out to a diner and I'd eat with their friends. I was like the only child allowed. And I just like loved all that attention. And so I wanted to be a priest. It's like, oh, I just like love the smell of the church. I love the statues. I loved it all. Of the crucifixes. I loved wearing my crucifix. I loved wearing, like, my grandpa wore the Italian, the cornetto, the horn. Loved that. I loved all of that stuff. And then found out I couldn't be a priest. I could be a nun. So it's like, oh, hey, like 5 years old, I'm going to be a nun. I already set out. But then I went through CCD, which is the little classes you take to make your first communion. And at the same time, my cat died. He was actually run over. And I was so upset. I went to class and I was like looking for consultants, like, feeling condolences. And I told my teacher, my cat, he died, but it's okay because I'll see him in heaven. And she's like, no, you won't. They don't go to heaven. And I was truly deeply shocked, like rattled to my core. And I like was like, what? Like, and I argued with her and I was like, no, they do. Like, they have to. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And I guess at that point, the Catholic Church kind of like feelings and their beliefs, it started to chip away for me. And I was kind of like, well, then I don't think I can be a Catholic at 10, which I think is kind of unusual. So I started to ask around friends. I started doing research at school. And then by the time I was in middle school, I had been to different churches and temples. And I had a friend who was a witch, she was a pagan. So I started kind of going down that path. But even while practicing witchcraft and being like a witch, I was still open to like going to Buddhist temples. I had a friend who was Hare Krishna, and they invited me to like a feast and like a whole Hare Krishna thing. And I was just always open, just like open to religion and spirituality. And so when we had this little shop open up in town and they offered a crystal healing course, I was just already so open to these things at 19. I was like, yeah, this sounds great. Like, why not? And so I went in there. They were a really nice group of middle-aged women that ran the shop, super calm and loving. They liked that I was one of the few teenagers that didn't steal. And so I got to take that class. And it's truly life changing. I took that course at the same time. Funny enough, I really fell in love with geology at my college and I became a geology club treasurer. So I was out in the field in the Mojave Desert. It's where I lived at this point. We had moved from New Jersey. So I was in the Mojave Desert collecting things like garnet and halite, opal. We went and collected talc. I was finding fossils with my professor, just like actively doing this. And then also studying about the healing of crystals in like my nighttime. So it was like the two kind of worlds coming together. And so since then, that was over 20 years ago, I have worked with crystals and stones for a long time, and pretty much the same set of crystals and stones. I've incorporated new ones here and there, but the ones that I initially worked with in that class, I've have them still, like I haven't upgraded or traded them in. They're just little tumbled stones, but I've built a relationship with them, and that relationship has just deepened throughout my life, I would say.
Wow, that's really an amazing journey, especially at such a young age. And I completely agree what you said in your intro about that we're on this spiritual journey, and a lot of us on this planet are really discovering like the path to our inner spirituality. More and more people are. I mean, you could see it all over social media, so that's so
Yeah.
true. So what drove you? If you have a copy of your book, you're free to hold it up. I have a PDF version, so there we go. Beautiful cover, very nice. I love Llewellyn, they're so awesome. They really are. That's the publisher. um
Yes.
so
Right.
what, you said you had like a and you delved into your Akashic records and they
Yes.
spoke to you. And I found that really timely because I've been doing a lot of studying on that myself and ways to connect to it. So let's just give the folks that are listening a quick overview of what you deem them to be the Akashic records and what happened to you during your connection to them.
Yeah, I love that. So I personally had not really heard of the Akashic Records until the like 2018 or so. I had befriended a bunch of Australian people who were very spiritual on social media, and we really hit it off, and we'd been like connecting and learning from one another. And in that week, both of them separately asked me about the Akashic Records, assuming that I would just know about them. And I didn't. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. So
Mm.
I bought a book. Linda Howe, she's like one of the first people I think to write it and about it in a modern way. I bought her book, and I bought like a meditation series through Hay House. I can't remember who that was with, on the Akashic Records. And at the same time, I had started studying with Kyle Gray, who's the Angel Whisperer. And so he also will talk about the Akashic Records. So from what I understand about the records is it's something that we see through all religions. So in Buddhism, they refer to it as the store consciousness, which is like our most collective kind of deepest consciousness, and that you can get to that part of yourself through deep meditation. In the Bible, it's often returned or called like the book of life or the tree of life, or the book that holds all the records, right? So that's kind of that. And so Akasha, I think it's Sanskrit, I
Yep.
want to say. Yeah. And so that's just like that. So it's like different terms. You see it like different terms for the same thing. And so when I started studying it, I realized, oh, wait, I kind of do understand this because I had studied the Kabbalah in my 20s as a way to understand the tarot. Like it was to understand the connection of
Mhm.
the imagery. And so it's like, okay, I kind of understand this. And I was like starting to understand it as a way to understand not just our past life, but our whole life, because according to the records, our past, present, future is not past, present, future. They're multidimensional, and they're all happening at the same time. And
Right.
so it's not just a way to access your past, but way to access any part of your lives. And I do believe in reincarnation. I do believe we've had multiple lives. And I think that that makes a difference when kind of looking into the Akashic Records. And so I understood it to be a way to access a part of myself that I couldn't access otherwise, like my soul self.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So when you connected with the Akashic Records, they spoke to you
Yes.
and they had a message for you. What was that message?
Well, I just want to say if people are on this path, it took me a long time to get a message. So I do want to say that it took me months and months of practice. I was dedicating every morning, I was opening the records and getting nothing. Like I would just sit there and I would open him and I would sit in meditation and I was waiting and I would start to see, and this is a sign I think for a lot of people, as your third eye opens, you will start to see color and sacred geometry if you're
Mhm.
someone that can see visually like that. And so I didn't know that was a sign at the time, but it was. I would sit and I would just kind of see this kind of psychedelic imagery, for lack of better words. And then at one point, I had a guide say, open your mouth. Like I could, it was so clear. It was like, open your mouth. And I realized then that I was an audio channeler. So like I
Mm.
don't hear or see the imagery first, but I record. So at this point, now my practice is I open the records and I have of like my phone recording my voice, and it's like stream of consciousness. It just comes out. My voice even sounds different. People I've read for will be like, "That doesn't even sound like you." I was like, because it's like a different version of me.
Yeah.
And so I went in there regularly, like I did, and I was trying to figure out what I could teach. I had already been teaching about crystals and using your intuition instead of using a book, because I really wanted people to learn how to connect with the energy of the crystal, not rely on like the internet or like a book to tell them what the crystal was for. I felt like it was very empowering for people to connect that way. And that class was very successful. I taught it in person and online. So I was like, what's next? And I got spirit crystals. And then I was like, that was it. And so then the next session I go in, I was like, what's spirit crystals? And then it was, they're in the quartz family, and they're guides that have been with humanity always, and everybody has one. They just have to connect with them. And so then
Mhm.
the next session was like, okay, well, who are they? And then I got the different quartz that are in the book. I only got 5 at first, and it was like, I feel like there's another one, but you just aren't telling me. And then it was because I didn't have the crystal. Like I didn't physically
Ah,
have it. And then so they like told me what it was, and I got one, and I then was able to work with it. And I sat with each crystal in the records to get the information for the book. So the book, I would say, is really channeled, and more than anything, it's straight from the crystals.
oh, wonderful, wonderful. You're going to see me say hello to people. Hello,
Yeah.
Heidi. Much love to you, dear friend. Oh, you have dark skies in Boulder. Ah, I know what we were just talking about weather. So, Jenny, I love um so you hadn't yet connected with your spirit crystal, right? So, let's tell folks, I mean, you kind of went over some of the parameters of what they are, but let's get a deeper dive. What exactly are spirit crystals?
Yeah, so the first thing I think for people to understand is that stones and crystals are alive. They evolve and they have a spirit consciousness, much like animals and plants. I think people who study herbalism or who believe in the power of herbal healing, it's a good way to kind of use an analogy. So, with herbalists, sometimes when they're stuck with a patient and they don't know what to give them, some
Mhm.
herbalists will go outside and wait for a plant to wave at them and just wait for a plant to be like, hey, it's me.
Yeah.
I'm the one. And so that's this collective kind of consciousness, this spirit of the plant that's telling you what is going on. And the same thing applies to crystals. That's why I think people are so drawn to them. I think of them almost like the gateway drug into spirituality because they're pretty and it's shiny and they like attract
Yeah.
people in, and then they can do the work. So the first thing is that they all have a consciousness. And so when we have a spirit crystal, they help you connect to that consciousness. So if your spirit crystal is amethyst, then you're going to be able to step into that consciousness of amethyst and understand all the qualities of amethyst, work with the guides and angels associated with amethyst, and really get that healing in that relationship because you are connected to the spirit of the crystal.
So, the crystal is living through the spirit guides, correct?
Yeah, so it's like I think it's Gary Zukav that
Hi,
talks
Gary.
about Gary
Sorry.
Zukav talks about in Seed of the Soul about how animals have a collective consciousness. Like
Mhm.
dolphin, there are just like a collective, it's almost like a collective soul. And so I think the same thing applies to crystals. So, like all the amethysts are connected to all the amethysts, right? So, one piece is going to connect you to that soul. And so, the spirit guide really is that large collection or collective of all of the amethyst, if that makes
Gotcha.
sense.
That does. That makes perfect sense. This may seem weird to ask, but I was thinking about it. Is Can you mistreat crystals? Is there a way to like disrespect them and not treat them with the respect they deserve?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you're familiar with Judy Hall, but she was an amazing crystal author. And I work with crystal skulls, and they are definitely like their own thing. We could talk about more later, but
Mhm.
she has this great story about buying one, a crystal skull with a spirit that was very unhappy inside of it because it had
Mm.
sat in a shop for so long and saw a crime occurred. It saw like a witnessed a murder,
Oh,
and it
goodness.
took her years to undo what had been done to that crystal and earn its trust and be able to work with it again. And so absolutely crystals are a witness, right? We think that everything is like around us is so material, but really there's so much spirit and energy around us, that the invisible world that we can't see, right?
Yes.
And so they are witnessing us. You know, trees witness us, animals witness us, and stones witness us. So if you're like taking your crystal and like throwing it down, or if you're keeping it in the dark for a long time, or just mistreating in some way, being really angry around the crystal, some crystals are really sensitive and will have a struggle with that. Some will soothe you for sure, but others might find that anger, to be really intense. Signs, some people have crystals break or they get lost. A lot of
Yeah.
times that's a sign the crystal wants a little break from you, and it's nothing personal. It's just that it's either taken in a lot of energy that and it's done. It's like, I'm done now. I need a little break. Or, something like that. Is not even that you mistreated them, but they're done for now. They just like need some time away.
Can a malevolent spirit live inside of a crystal as well, or is it just all love, beloved spirits that attract to them? Like, how do you know? And if the answer is yes, like, how do you know? What do you do about that?
Yeah, so in my experience, crystals that don't have a face, so like not a carved crystal, so like a tumbled crystal, a natural crystal, they are simply connected to that collective consciousness. Now, a
Mhm.
crystal skull that has a face and eyes often can have a different guide inhabit it that's beyond the collective consciousness. I personally have not run into a crystal skull with a malevolent spirit, but as a witch, like I understand all about dolls and doll possession and haunted dolls.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I really do believe that anything with eyes can be inhabited by a spirit of any kind.
Wow. I never thought about it that way. So if it mimics a face, then it could attract any type of spirit, right?
Yeah, so
Why
what
is
I
that?
oh, I was gonna say what I've learned is like when we make a poppet, and we a lot of times we won't put eyes on the poppet because we don't want it to have any kind of consciousness of its own. So if it's like a
Mm,
poppet of myself that I'm making for healing, I don't want it to be more than that. If I add eyes, it becomes something more than that. And so in that way, I'm thinking it could be possible with a crystal skull, especially because they do have the eye sockets, that something could inhabit. And I don't know why that is. It's something I learned probably 20 years ago when I was a student of like
yeah.
witchcraft. Don't put eyes unless you want something to inhabit it beyond what your intentions are.
Mm. I wonder if in doing that, if in adding eyes, we're injecting intention into the thing.
I
Maybe
think that's
we
possible.
Yeah, maybe we're doing that. Wow. Hi, Mish. Always so blessed to see you, dear friend. Um, we had, I think, a question here. Oh, Heidi was saying she has a crystal that says a spirit guide is inside, spun from the sand in the ocean, slipped my mind. She thinks it's a rose something. There's a lot of crystals at the beach.
Yeah.
Now, that's such a great point, Heidi. So, say you're walking on the beach, people just collect them because they're pretty, and then
Mhm.
they throw them in a bucket and, decorate something with them. And I was just wondering, like, if that's a good way to connect. To me, it doesn't seem like it is because it's just being taken as like an ordinary object. And like, I'll go in a crystal shop and see a bracelet, that I connect to, and I'll pick it up and hold it, and I'll just get this message like, you need to come home with me. Is that like a good way to connect to crystals? And is it okay to do it in a crystal shop? Or do you recommend like going out in nature? But they're so hard to find in nature. Like, how would you even do that?
Yeah, so they are super hard to find. I live in Oregon now, and on our coast, we can find agate and jasper. And so we do go out and collect pieces sometimes, but that's like a very fortunate circumstance. Like I happen to live here, I happen to be able to have the time. It's not for most people. And I do think that regular stones, like sometimes, you'll be walking on a path and you'll find a stone and you don't know what it is, but you just like really like it and you feel grounded or happy with it. That's okay too. That's kind of what I was saying. Like sometimes it's okay not to know what kind of crystal it is and just use your
Mm,
intuition to connect.
yeah.
Like, like that's fine if you're like, I don't know what kind of stone it is, but it makes me feel good, then that's okay to work with that too.
Oh, good. Do you meditate with your crystal stones? Like in during the course of your day, how do you implement them in your life?
How don't I implement them would be a better question. No. Yeah, so I work from home, so I'm very fortunate to be able to have like time at home. When I didn't, I had a different routine, which I can also share. But the first thing is that my house is gridded, and that means that it has crystals put with intention in different places of the home with purpose. So, for
Wow.
example, I have a piece of selenite above my doorway as a way to kind of cleanse everybody as they walk through or walk out. I have a piece of black tourmaline by the front door to keep negative energy away.
Mhm.
In all the bedrooms, we have rose quartz because that promotes like love and like a softening, and it's very relaxing. When my son was having nightmares, we had amethyst under his bed to prevent the nightmares, which really did help. But all throughout the house are crystals, stones I've collected, and seashells, because seashells are very protective. They're a very natural
Mhm.
protective energy. And so, what looks like just decoration for a lot of people isn't. And so, chances are people tuning in probably are like, wait, I have seashells here and I have stones here. Like they've gridded their house without even really realizing it. So, that's
Yeah.
one way, right? They're there. I do meditate with them. I actually meditate with, I have a small tumbled stone of each of the spirit crystals. And because they helped me become an author, I feel great gratitude. So I do meditate with them daily. I keep rose quartz in the shower because it's a beautiful stone. It makes you feel good. And so I like to have it in the shower. I keep aventurine by my tea because I like to have my morning tea with intention. And so they sit in a little bowl by my teapot. And so it's like I have
Mhm.
my tea brewing and then I just kind of, let their crystal energy work in.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you wear a different type of stone on your body than the ones that are in your home, or do you kind of mix them up, and or do you just get up in the day and see what you feel like wearing, like what you're vibrating with?
Yeah, so I do change it up. I always wear amber on my wrist. It's real amber. It has that delicious smell. Amber is very protective, but I also know that it's like a mild pain reliever, and so I like to wear it.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why they do the teething necklaces for babies. It's like a mild pain relief when it kind of, because the
Mhm.
oils make the amber rub off on your skin and they mix together. So I wear that. Today I'm wearing emeralds because that's my son's birthstone, and I love to wear that for him. And then usually, oh, and I always wear my moonstone necklace, either my
Yes.
moonstone or I have a jade necklace that I wear.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Very
depending
nice.
on the mood.
Yeah, yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. Let's see what Carrie said. Should anything with eyes can bond someone to other realms? This is this is skulls are not able to allow this. This is what spirit has taught her. So anything with eyes can bond you to other realms. That's interesting. Yeah. Oh
Yeah, that's what I was
goodness, that's
saying.
kind of
I've not
scary.
heard of a malevolent spirit in
Yeah.
a crystal skull, but as I was saying, that could be possible, but she's saying maybe not because they don't actually have eyes, and that makes sense to me because I haven't met anybody with a negative spirit guide in a crystal skull. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Um because and in your book you say that its power is activated through the user's intent and connection. Do people use them with ill intent as well, or would a stone just reject that?
yeah, so that's an interesting question. And I think when you ask that question, it makes me think of Moldavite. So I don't know if you're on TikTok, but Moldavite had a moment on TikTok where everybody was talking about it on Witch Talk, on Spirit Talk, on Crystal Talk, and people were saying it does all kinds of wild things. Like it'll cause someone, like if you put it in someone's house or a car, it could curse them with bad luck. They were saying it could bring in,
Oh,
help you win the lottery. I mean, it was like, it was
wow.
intense. Yeah, it was like this whole moment. I think it was like a couple years ago. And that was really interesting to me. So I think, when we work with crystals, it's like when we work with herbs. I'm a witch. I know that people can use witchcraft to hex and curse people. And can they add crystals and herbs to those hexes? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it comes down to, the intention of the person always.
Yeah, I believe that to be true. And on the topic of witchcraft, I think today, and we've talked about this with other witches as well, and I'd love to get your perspective. How do you think being a witch in today's day and age is met? Like, do you find that people have lightened up about that, or do you still get, looks or resistance from people that find out? Like, what's your take on that whole thing?
Yeah, I think it's kind of mixed. So I was a witch in the 90s, and I remember I worked at a pet store called New Jersey Pets, and I would always wear, it wasn't a pentacle, it was just a star. Like it didn't have the circle around it. And I remember having a police officer come to my line. I was 16 and he was like, "Are you a witch?" And I was just like, I just ignored him. I'm like, I'm not
Yeah,
answering this. And
yeah.
he's like, "I see your necklace and you probably think it's all great right now, but soon enough they'll have you murdering people and you need to watch out." And I was
Oh,
like, "Okay,
goodness.
interesting." So, that East Coast, there was Son of Sam and all of that. So
Oh, yeah.
definitely like this feeling of it's a satanic cult, like very mixed up, like not really what witchcraft,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
how a lot of people see it. And then now I would say that most of the time people are like excited or open to it. Gen Z is very interested in witchcraft. And I
Yeah.
read an article recently on the New York Times about a woman who gave up therapy and decided to get some tarot cards and to get astrology readings instead. And talked about how much happier and how much more mentally healthy she felt doing
Mhm.
that. And then we had the whole kind of Mariners situation where a Mariners fan paid an Etsy witch to take the curse off the team, and they were playing suddenly so much better and made it into playoffs. And so there's like all of this kind of good press, I would say, about,
Yeah.
the younger generation just, being really open. Like I have a niece who's 30 and would never call herself a witch, but loves when I send her crystals, loves when I do tarot readings for her. Like they're just very open and not like it's just fun to them. Like they're excited to be witchy. They don't want to maybe be a witch, but they're happy to do witchy things. And so
Yeah.
it's such a different kind of vibe. But yeah, I still get like comments on my YouTube, your eyes are evil. Like, okay.
Oh, jeez. That's crazy.
Right?
Yeah, everybody has to say something about something. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I would just ignore those crazy loons.
for
But
sure.
I think Hollywood too gave witches a good name. There was a lot of movies that helped people get over that. Do you think the word pagan and witch are kind of interchangeable? Because I notice a lot of people call themselves pagans, some say they're witches. So what's up with that? Is it the same to you or is it very different?
Yeah, so when I was in college, we had a pagan meetup group. And so in that group, we had some people who identified as pagan, and that meant to them at the time, and I think still does, it's almost like they would all kind of like go with one pantheon. So like
Mm,
be very interested in like Norse
yeah,
paganism, and they
yeah,
would follow those rules and those rites, and they work with those gods exclusively. Then there was Wiccans who were like Wiccan is
right.
like the new age religion based loosely on paganism and witchcraft. And then there was witches, and that seemed to be like a catch-all for everybody else. Like because there's some witches that are secular, they don't work with any deities. Um,
Hmm.
and so that kind of seemed like the three kind of things. And now though, like you go and there's hashtags for like cosmic witch, crystal witch, herb
Yeah.
witch. Like there's so many different types according to social media.
Yeah, they really are. They really
Yeah.
are. And that's cool. It's kind of like they're finding their own path, to whatever it is they want to walk. So in your book, you detail the process of activating a crystal. Could you walk us through some of the most crucial steps, I guess, in an activation ritual, and explain why intention setting is so important when you're working with like a new stone? So, like, you go in a shop, you see a bracelet or a stone. What do you do?
Great. I love that. I love too that some people have access to shops. I have a really good shop here. If you
Yeah,
don't,
we do too.
there's some good Etsy shops, I will say. Like if you don't
Yeah.
have a personal, I try to avoid Amazon because they do sell fakes and they don't really care
Oh,
that they
goodness.
sell fakes sometimes. So yeah, if you can get to a shop, great. Something will call to you. I always tell people to set a budget because sometimes more crystals call to you than are in the budget at the time.
Yes. So true.
It's
And
so
they're not cheap. They're not cheap.
they used to be, but they aren't
Yeah.
anymore, you
No.
know? Yeah, I know. But anyway, so you get your new, let's say, clear quartz, and you were just drawn to it. You get it home. The first thing I do is I clean it and then I cleanse it. So with
Mm,
cleaning, I mean, like I'll take like a Dr. Bronner's or like a gentle soap and I'll actually clean the
mhm.
stone. Not all crystals can be in water. So definitely ask the shop or do your research. But
Oh,
yeah, so like you might not want to put like halite. Halite's just salt, but we collect it as crystals. So you don't want to put that in water. So you just want to be cautious about that. But usually I wash it. And if you can't wash it like that, you can use like just make sure there's no dirt. I just don't want to like have other people's
yeah,
fingerprints and that kind of thing.
exactly.
Yeah, and then the next thing I do is I cleanse it, and so you can use a piece of selenite is very cleansing. So you just like can put your crystal, your new crystal on there, or you can cleanse around it. You can use sacred smoke. My favorite current sacred smoke is mugwort because it grows native here, and
Mm,
so I just dry it and burn it. Run the crystal through the smoke, or if it's a big crystal, you run the smoke around the crystal. So those are two different options. My favorite option, though, is to go outside and
yeah,
put the crystal on the ground and ask the sun and the earth to reclaim this crystal because it's sitting in a shop for however long. And before
yeah.
it was in the shop, it was in a box or what, it's not
Mhm.
been like in its native habitat, really, right? Where it's from the ground and it hasn't been in the
Yeah,
ground. So that's the first step. So cleansing it. And sometimes the cleansing takes a bit. You may feel like, I don't think that was good enough. I want to do that again. And that's just, I really try to encourage people to like listen to that little voice that's like, let's cleanse it one more time. And then after that, there's lots of different ways, but I like to just like take the crystal, hold it to like the center of my chest, like the heart chakra area, and start talking to it. Like, welcome to my home. This is my energy here. I welcome you. I want you to like to work with you. I'd like to connect with you.
mhm.
I invite you to wake up. Wake up. I want to connect with that
Mm.
consciousness. And so you can put it in your heart space. You can put your breath on the crystal. And I only
Oh,
do
I
this with
like that.
crystals. Yeah, like only ones you're going to keep though, because you're making it very personal with your own energy. If you were going
Mhm.
to give it to a friend, I wouldn't do that because it's like then it's connected to you and not them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And then that usually will get them to kind of come online, like wake up again and be ready to. And I feel like they look different. Like you'll see them sparkle a little more, or you'll notice a rainbow you didn't notice or something. And if you're like, I didn't feel that, just do it again. Like that's always the thing is some people are like, well, I didn't feel anything. Well, it's okay. You can do it a bunch of times until you feel it, or maybe you just don't feel it, but it worked. It's kind of up to them.
Yeah, because I think too, a lot of people, they have busy days and they can't, they're not working from home and they're doing a 9 to 5 and then they have kids and they want to integrate spirit crystals in their life. Do you recommend that they just get like one or two? I mean, can they still do the same thing with lesser than more?
Yeah, 100%. I will say that you could use a clear quartz for anything. Like if you're only
Mm,
going to have one crystal, you are like, that's all that's in my budget. It's very inexpensive because it's all over the world and it's easily mined. It's also been referred to as the shaman stone by some people, but it is the like my go-to for anybody because it usually I haven't had anybody have an aversion. I teach a class and I always ask in the class, does anybody have an aversion to any crystal? I've never had clear quartz come up.
at anybody? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good. So Mish said, can you have too many crystals or is there no such thing? That's a great question, I think.
Yeah. Well, I was
Because I
on the
think people that collect crystals hoard them. Like, I've seen so many people that, like, hoard them, right?
no, it's not. You're not. It's not an exaggeration. Yeah, I would say I'm a hoarder of oracle and tarot cards for sure.
Are you?
I have over 100. I don't
Oh,
need more.
goodness.
I don't need more, but I keep getting them. So
Yeah.
I just say I'm a collector. But
Yeah,
no,
well,
but I don't
that's
think so.
okay.
It's I was recently I'm good friends with Granddaughter Crow. I've been on her podcast a few times, and she talked about at one point she just kind of like went through her crystals and were like, some of these I don't connect with, and she gave them to friends. And so if you feel like maybe you have too many, there are rehoming groups specifically for crystal skulls. So you can always rehome that one and give it to somebody who's going to
Mm,
take care of it. You can give them away. You can, put them, we release them outside. Sometimes I'll tell my children, you have too many stones from the beach. Let's go release them back to their natural
yeah.
habitat. We put them in the yard. But yeah, it's like if you're feeling good about all that energy in your house and you're like,
Yeah.
this feels good to me, sure. But, just have a plan for them. I've been to a lot of estate sales where it's just all these crystals up for grabs, and I kind of feel a little sad for them. I'm like, man, like there's no
Yeah.
granddaughter that wants these. Like,
Yeah. That's so true. You know
yeah,
what's another cool thing that I'm attracted to, for some reason? River rocks. They're not
yeah,
crystals, but they're so cool.
yeah.
And just knowing that they've been like, I love finding them in their natural habitat, and I just, like, connect to them. Is they're not crystals though, but can they do the same kind of vibe?
For sure. I actually, Nicholas Pearson has his book with the witching stones, and he has a whole section on hag stones. So like the hold stone
Mm.
and how people like use that for all kinds, use it for protection, for psychic enhancement, like, and it's just a stone with a hole in it. Like it's
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
anything. Yeah. And then another stone we collect here is called a wishing stone, which is a piece of like any kind of stone that has a ring of quartz running around it, like completely around. And there's a couple different kind of superstitions, but like basically you take your finger and you trace the quartz all the way around and you make a wish, and when your finger
Oh,
comes
how
back.
cute.
Yeah.
I
And
love
so
that.
yeah, there's lots of, the thing is being living in the United States, and for so long Native American indigenous people could not write or share about their own spirituality.
Mm.
What we know about stones and crystals mainly comes from like Eurocentric view. And so a lot of the native stones here, they're special, but we just maybe don't know how special because no one's talked about it. And so for me, I love river stones too. And there's a spell that I do. It's really simple where I'll grab a stone and rub it through my palms. It's always so smooth. And I'll just tell it what I no longer want to carry, and then I ask
Mm.
it to take it to the river for me, and then I'll release it in the river, and
Oh,
it
I
always
love
feels
that.
so much lighter. Yeah.
So how different is your life since you really became like a master of I mean, you really are. You've written books about it, you teach about it. How different has your life been? Like if hypothetically we were to remove all the crystals from your home, how do you think that would I know that might seem like an odd question, but how do you think that would affect you? I guess I'm trying to find out like the impact that they've had and have on your life.
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, if you took them all away and took that connection away,
Mm.
yeah, I don't think I would be where I am, because I
Mm.
really so much of my path, my spiritual path, has revolved around crystals. Like that was my first official spiritual class. When I took Reiki and I became a Reiki master, I brought my crystals with me, and my teacher had a giant amethyst that we'd work with. I
Mhm.
even think about, my first book is about crystals. Like I just don't think I had my first past life experience buying crystals. Like I don't think it'd be the same.
Oh, you'll have to tell us about that.
Yeah, I will. It's actually so weird. So you asked me about the Akashic records, and part of why I think I never knew about them is because I was never really interested in past lives. Like I totally believe in reincarnation and have for a really
Mhm.
long time, but I was not like Shirley MacLaine. Like I was like, I don't really like. I always thought like people were always saying like they were all like Egyptian
Yeah,
goddesses,
yeah, yeah.
and I was a queen, and it's like, how can you
Exactly.
all be
No,
queen?
no one was ever like a mud flinger or something. Everybody had a prestigious past somehow. That's so
Yeah.
true.
So I was like, I don't think this is real, basically.
Mm.
And so we went to a local crystal fair. It was in the parking lot of like a strip mall, just basic. And I went with my family, and I told my husband ahead of time, I want to get a mala, like which are the 108 beads that you use for meditation. And I want it to be out of crystals. It's like I had already meditated for one full year every day. And it was like my present to myself. Like,
Oh,
I want
nice. Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to treat myself. And he was like, "Yeah, for sure." So, like, "So if I see a stand with that, it's your job to take our children away so I can really look." Because being a mom, like, you can't ever
Sure.
shop. So so we're
Never.
walking so we're walking around the fair and I see this stand and it has that and it has crystal grids. And I look at my husband and he nods and he just starts walking off with the kids, like, "Hey guys, we're gonna go look over here." And so I tell that part of the story because it's important to know that I was never seen with my family at this little stand. So I'm looking at the stand, I'm looking at the malas. There's a man sitting like with his head down on a phone, totally ignoring everybody. And I'm like, okay, he probably doesn't want to be here. And then there's a woman working the stand and she's talking with everyone. And she starts talking to me about the mala beads and this and that. And all of a sudden he looks up from his phone, he looks at me and he just like makes a beeline. And he's like, "You were my sister in another life."
Oh, jeez.
It was so I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "May I touch your hand?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we're already here. Like, let's go for it, you know?" So he touches my hand and he's like, "Yes." He's like, "You were my sister in another life. We were at a temple together. I see you giving out lotuses to people and it was such a happy time." He's like, "You have so many spirit guides around you that they all protect your family." And he points to my family, which is like
Oh, wow.
yeah, at this point, like, far away, and I know he didn't see them because he was down on his phone the whole time we were walking around, and he's like, "Yeah, they're so protective of you and them and your children they're so protected by them, and so is your husband." He's, like, talking, and I've obviously bought the mala beads
Of
because
course.
why wouldn't you
I
after
mean,
that
that
story?
sounds like a pretty genuine reaction too. I mean,
Yeah.
he doesn't yeah, it really sounds very authentic.
Yeah, it wasn't they weren't selling past life readings.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
had no advertisement for psychic, not it was just a little crystal stand. He was not that was not the thing, but he felt called to come talk to me, and that's actually what sparked my whole Akashic Records journey because I was like, "Okay, so maybe past lives are real," because I had always felt that I had a past life as a nun or at a temple or something because I was immediately
Mm.
as a child drawn to like, I wanna be a
Yeah,
priest, I wanna be a nun, and then,
right.
like, I had always said, like, if I didn't marry by a certain age, I was just gonna be a Buddhist monk, like, I was just gonna
Mm,
just live that life, and I've always been able to, like, get up early and, like, have, like, such self-discipline, which was
yeah.
abnormal for, like, a teenager, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Usually you can't get them out of bed. It's so true, so true. That's so interesting. So, did you, resonate with that? Like, once you started reading your records, your Akashic records, did that past life start to resonate with you? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, so that past life did not come up to me personally at first. I decided when I was trying to learn the records that I would pay for an Akashic Records reading. It was a friend of mine. She was like, "Hey, since we're both trying to learn the records, I'm going to try to find a reader because then we can see what it's like." Like, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes like you have to see what's possible in order to do it yourself.
Mhm.
So it's like, great. So she found this woman on Etsy. Her name's Laura at Intuitive Dreams, and I go to her every year. And so I got a reading, and I was just like, I didn't even know what to ask. I was like, just tell me what I need to know,
Mhm.
basically. And in that record, she talked about me working at a temple. And so then I was
Oh,
like, okay, so now I have two strangers basically
right.
telling me the same story. And that was such a confirmation for me that I was like, okay, I definitely had a life where I worked at some kind of temple and was
Mhm.
spiritual in that life too.
Did they tell you where geographically? Was that Egypt? Like, where was that?
Yeah, so it was Egypt. And then at first I was like, oh, come on. I had already said, like, we can't all be Egyptian. Do you know what I
Right,
mean? So I was like a little suspicious of
so
that
true.
part because I was like, how is this possible? But because two people said the same thing, I was like,
Yeah.
well, maybe it is true.
Yeah, I mean, and if you think about it, that was really the largest geographic, highly populated area at the time. So it kind of makes sense that, there were millions of people there. So, I mean, and then if you take into account the reincarnations too, I mean, I think all of us have felt like we've come from Egypt that, those of us that believe in reincarnation anyway. But that
No,
is
I
so
think
cool.
I think it's true, and I was
Yeah.
always drawn to it. Even as a child, I got to
Yeah.
go see
Yeah.
the King Tut exhibit when it came through California, and
Yeah.
I got midnight tickets, and I was just, like, I wore ankhs. I always liked Egyptian
I did
things.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I
I think
think
it
it's
really
true.
resonates. It does. It really resonates. Something about the whole Egyptian culture just resonates with people. And that's why they have, every museum has one of those events that take place because people just resonate with it. It's so true.
Yeah.
So, um, y- getting back to the Akashic records, we know with this reading that you had, because I'm very interested in that. Um, they're not supposed to be, no pun intended, like written in stone, the records. They're supposed to be fluid and have, from my perception and understanding of them, that nothing is etched out for you, that you're in charge of your own decisions and destinies and choices, and that the records are very fluid in that way. Is that what you've been taught about them? Because everybody I talk to about them has a little variation on what they are and how to access them.
I agree with you because, like I said, I think our lives are multidimensional. And so when I got that reading from Laura, one of the things she said is that that life in Egypt, I was at the temple, but then there was a violent coup, and I ended up being tossed out of the temple. And it made me hit like a wall when it came to spirituality where I couldn't go
Mm,
past. And that was 100% true, that I actually
yeah.
had this weird irrational fear that if
Yeah.
I got too spiritual, I would die. And
Oh,
yeah, if I just got too far on the spiritual path, I would just die. And it was like such a weird fear that I could never understand how I got it in this lifetime or anything. And so when she said that, it resonated so much because it's like, oh my God, like I've never told anybody about that. And it's such a strange thing I've had. And so she told me that you can clear any lifetime. And so she said, you
yeah,
need
yeah.
to clear all the lifetimes of that fear so that you can go further on your journey. And that's what I did.
Yeah, because there is such a thing as generational family trauma that
Mhm.
we do carry with us from generation to generation. And I've spoken to a lot of people that actually teach you how to, cleanse yourself and move past that. So that resonates to be very true. I like that. I like that. So interesting because I had um, a quantum session done
Oh, yes.
and it was so amazing. And I never really thought too much other than the Egyptian thing about reincarnation, like where I came from, because I was certain it was Egypt too. But I also resonated very deeply after that session with the fact that I came from a part near Salem, and I was persecuted as a witch and drowned in. It's so weird because when I went into this state, I actually saw myself getting submerged and drowned in this metal cage.
Oh my
And
god.
it's so weird because when I was 16, I developed asthma and she connected that really hit me like a ton of bricks. And then we did a healing on that. I mean, it's all very real stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. My asthma, my reader connected it to being a chimney sweep.
Oh goodness.
And we've talked about you just talked about, like, how no one's ever, like, a mudslinger, but she's like, "You had a
Yeah.
life where you were a child, you didn't even make it past, like, teenagehood, you died as a chimney sweep, and
And
that's why you have" and she didn't even know I had asthma, but I do, and it was like, "Okay." I mean, I was hospitalized with asthma and pneumonia as a child, I really
me
had to
too.
struggle, and it all makes sense when she said that, I was like, "Oh,
No, it
that's."
really does. Because this is again generational trauma.
Mhm.
It really is. We have to like free ourselves of it somehow, and hopefully through our spiritual journey, and meditation and healing, we can do that, but it takes a lot of work. It's not like just a one day,
Yes.
thing. You really need to work on that. And what did Carrie say here? Confirmation from other has helped me to solidify my truth of who I am and who I was. Yeah, that's so true.
So true.
Confirmation from others. Yeah, especially gifted people, and there's many of us that are very gifted and able to tap in and read these things and see these things. And it's nice when you get validation from other people, especially people that don't know you and don't really
Yes,
know anything about your life. It's trippy. It
it
really
is.
is very, yeah, it's very very trippy.
Yeah, like I
Um,
consider myself to be spiritually in tune and be, I'm a fortune teller. That's what I always use the term. Like I'm able to tap in, but I can't so much do it for myself. And so it's very
yeah,
nice, like she said, to have confirmation from someone else who can see
yes.
more clearly because they're not biased because it's not their self.
Gosh, that's so true. Um, I remember as far back as like 4 and 5 just being an empath and just knowing that that's what I was my whole life. But
Hmm.
and it's so difficult to read your own self because you're so tapped into everything and everybody around you.
Yes.
So, I'm sure you've experienced that as well. What do you do other than meditation for yourself? Do you do shadow work? Like, what's your healing journey like? I mean, well, you use crystals, of course,
Yes.
but aside from that, what else do you do for self-healing?
Well, what haven't I tried would be a better question. No. I'm a self-proclaimed self-help junkie, have
Yeah,
been for a long time, but no, self-help
so
only took
true.
me so far until I got into spirituality, I'll say. Like, you can
Yeah,
only go so far in the self-help and therapy journey sometimes without the spiritual component,
yeah,
but yeah, I do shadow work every year. It's a yearly thing. We enter autumn and I just feel them rise, and I'm like, "It's time." Like, what's coming up? What's
yeah,
hiding in the deepest corners of my psyche? I do meditate, I do yoga, I journal. Journaling has been I
yeah,
have a, like,
that's
a
good.
love-hate relationship with it. Like, I
Yeah,
didn't really want to do it for a long time,
yeah,
but then when I started, I was like, "Oh, this is very freeing to do."
yeah,
Um, Talking with friends, I think, is always great. But yeah, working with crystals, I recently have gotten more into herbs and foraging and being in nature, gardening. Yeah, I address my spirit hopefully daily, and if not, like on a new moon and full moon. So like monthly,
mhm,
I'm always checking in, like what's going on, because I think healing is cyclical. So we heal and then we circle back to that same thing and we circle back again until it's like
yeah.
all the way done. But it takes a lot of layers to get there.
It does. It really does. People are under the misconception that like there's a one thing you do fix, and it's not
Exactly.
that way. It takes a lot of work, a lot of work.
A lot of work, a
Uh,
lot of time,
and
a
you
lot
get
of work.
right, and you do get good results if you really stick to it and have a lot of diligence in your healing as well. And I love talking about healing because ever since 2020, there's a lot of us that are traumatized from the events that have taken place. And a lot of people either don't want to see their trauma or they bury their trauma. And I think it's very important to talk about it, to do things about it in order to heal. We've had global trauma take place. I mean, I lost my husband of 45 years during that period. So, a lot of people have. So, I love the fact that you can do all these things, use crystals, which, it's kind of easy to make friends with a crystal, I
Yeah.
think, right?
Yeah.
Like I have some crystals that like I carry a little one my daughter gave me. One day she said, "Ma, this is supposed to attract money. It's green. I forget what it's called, but it's not jade. It's like green and black dots." Does that ring a bell? Knew the name. I have to ask her. But I threw it in my wallet and I leave it there. And I fully believe that that attracts money. And
Yeah.
because I believe that, I believe it. I believe it does.
Yeah.
So,
I
a
agree
lot of
with
it
you.
is the belief, right? The intent.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is I think the crystals are open to the intention.
That's what it is. It's
Moldavite.
Moldavite. Yeah, I remember that now. Thank you, Lee. And hi. So good to see you. You slipped past me in there. Anyone in the chat I didn't say hello to, I definitely will make sure to do that. Um, okay, so what negative forces? I mean, you're obviously into high strangeness your whole life. You're living your life as a practicing witch. And I don't always like bringing up darkness, but at the same time, to me, it's a yin and yang. It's a balance of darkness and light. And I embrace the dark. I try not to be afraid of it, but rather in control of it.
Mm.
And like anytime I get negative forces in my head or saying things to me that are negative, I always use the light to combat that. So, given that, and I always like to preface it that way because I think it's important for folks to know that you need to have that balance. Because there are some folks I talk to, whether they're witches or whatever they practice, and they're like, I don't deal with the darkness. I don't want to talk about it. I don't talk about it. And I don't know, that's not like that's great for them, but I think it's very important to recognize it and know what to do if and when you're confronted by it. So, given that statement, have you ever encountered darkness that concerned you and made you aware, like, hey, I better do something about this, whether it's prayer or meditation or spells? Like, what's that been like for you?
Yeah, well, I also wanna say I'm gonna answer that, but I loved when you talked about the collective trauma of 2020. I just feel like you obviously had very deep personal trauma, and I'm
Yeah.
sorry for that. And then,
Thank
but
you.
on top of that, you have the collective trauma. So it's like double the trauma because
Yeah.
you're right. It's not, we're not over it.
No.
And it completely changed humanity and the collective consciousness. It's irreversible. And it's been so different. I mean, you talk to anybody about 2019, feels like a different world that we were in.
Freaking-lutely.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that I know this may sound cuckoo to some people, but for me, I feel like we've slipped into an alternate dimension. I really do believe that. Whether it's CERN, doing what they do over there, I don't know what in God's name they're doing over there with their portals and their craziness that's going on, whether it's intentional or non-intentional. But I believe you're spot on. I think 2019, absolutely different dimension
Yeah.
in time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and because all the people are waking up too. Like there's
Yeah.
so many more people who have been turning to spirituality outside of religion more than ever, I would say in the modern era. All during that time, like, can't be coincidental, you know what I mean? Like, it's just such a different change, and so Laura, who I mentioned earlier in her I always get a New Year's reading from her, and she was saying how right now the veil is staying thinner longer than normal
Mm.
because the darkness needs to be seen and more people need to be aware of what's out there. And I thought that was really interesting. And she said the light's winning. So I want to tell everybody that so they're not worried. But she did say
Yeah.
that. And I feel that. I feel that that's true. And, definitely like on a deep level that resonated with me. It wasn't just for me, it was kind of like a general, everybody needs to hear this.
Absolutely.
And then I studied shamanism with the Four Winds Society. And so I do want to say that one of the best things I learned in that class, and from a shamanistic perspective, is that the invisible world exists, and there are things that are hungry, and they need to feed themselves, and they need to feed their other beings attached to them.
Yeah.
And they may
Absolutely.
not see themselves as evil, but you
Mhm.
would perceive them as a dark or an evil, and you don't want them feeding on you. And in Buddhism, they refer to them as hungry ghosts. And so there's these two very different spiritual paths who are both saying that there's this invisible world of darkness. So when people say, I don't want to deal with darkness, that's great, but it will deal with you, like, unfortunately.
Right.
And so,
Yeah, I believe that. That's
yeah,
that's spot on, Jenny. Spot
yeah.
on.
And so, probably one of the most, I don't know, interesting or most like dark things I had to deal with is I used to go ghost hunting for
Mm.
fun, before kids. And I would go with my friend Jeff, and we had like some equipment and we'd set up things. And we would always protect ourselves spiritually. And so that's something I talk about on my TikTok. I talk about in Our Coven. In this book, I talk about it. It's so important to practice some kind of spiritual hygiene where
Yeah.
each day you're protecting your energy, you're protecting yourself. Because, like I said, there are hungry ghosts and they are often attracted to whatever you're doing spiritually. Because when we are doing things spiritually, our energy is high. And it doesn't mean
Right.
that the energy isn't going to attract other things that's all
Correct.
attracted to the energy. Think of yourself as a candle in the dark, and
Yeah.
everything's like interested in that candle, and it might not all be good. So that's why the protection's so important. So we did go into this situation spiritually protected, but we were investigating this house, and there was a weird dugout basement with a printing press. And I just felt like I was being strangled in the basement, and I was like,
Ooh.
"We need to get out of here, like, now." I started to, like, panic, and that was not typical for me, and this is with spiritual protection, you know? And so he looked at me and he's like, "The temperature's dropped, like, dramatically in here," and I was like, "Yeah, that's it, we get out." And, like,
Yeah, that's it right there.
we had never left a place early like that, but because it just, like, I could feel it, and I
Yeah.
was like, "I'm being attacked, I can't stay here." So that would be, like, for me, like, it was very formative. I was, like, 20, and I was like, "Oh, it is real." You know what I mean? Like, you read
Yeah.
stories and
That
stuff,
was
but no.
validation. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not the best kind, but yes.
No, no.
Yeah.
No, definitely not. Someone said something really uh, Carrie said, "We should change the name from witch to queen of healing like Jenny and myself." I like that, I like that,
I
I
like it.
do, I do.
I like
And
it.
then Lee said something very true here, Lee. "The God of this world requires duality because it runs both sides." See, that's exactly true too.
Mhm.
Did you have any other, experiences with the darkness? Say when you were, casting spells or in meditation? Because I had one in meditation that freaked me out. Have you or was that the only one that you experienced that kinda, like, spooked you a little bit?
I have had people put, I don't know if they're intentional, but they are, like, I've been hexed or cursed,
Yeah.
crossed, as you wanna call it, I think from social media, and that, just so people know, like, if you ever have a feeling, like, it has this happened to me, you get a bowl of water and 2 matches, and you strike them
Okay.
and you drop them in the water, and if they cross, you have been
Ooh,
you have been crossed. And so I did that. I saw that, yes, in fact, I had been crossed because I already had a feeling. I had another sign is like I had a string of bad luck. I was feeling really down emotionally, and it all sort of just came out of nowhere. And I was like, like, one bad thing happened is one thing, but several bad things happening, plus I'm
exactly.
feeling down. This is not normal. And this is,
Right,
me using a lot of spiritual protection, but it's something still got through.
right.
And so I have taken a course in limpias, which are Mexican healing, and it's like use herbs. There you can use herbs, you can use an egg, you can use water, you can use candles, and
Mm,
so it's a great spiritual cleansing and protection practice. And I took a whole course in it, and I used all that I learned. And it was interesting because I had lit an uncrossing candle, and I had sent a picture to my best friend. I'm like, this is, what happened and whatever. And she is also spiritual. And she zoomed in on the flame, and you could clearly see a woman's outline and something choking her like
oh,
this.
geez.
And she's like, there's the proof. Like, that is what's happening. Cause I had felt stifled. Like, I was like, I can't
You
create.
felt it. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Let me ask you this, so when you drop the matches in the water, do you just drop them straight down and then wait for them to land?
Yeah, so what I try to do is light them at the same time, so they're both in, like, one hand, and
Ah,
try to light them and then drop them. And so it's like I'm not, if you do this or that, you almost mess with
yeah.
the crossing, so it's like I try to light them at the same time, hold them in the same hand, drop them, and then if they cross, then I know I gotta do something.
You've been crossed, yeah.
Mhm.
And then well, yeah, because even if you do grounding every day, like, I always try and I always use the funny story of, like, when I go into Walmart, right? I
Yeah.
can't
No.
stand going in there. Can't stand it. But I like the prices of the things, so,
Yeah.
once every 2 months, I have to pop in there. But before I go in there, I, picture like a protective golden bubble around myself and because I've had some unfortunate encounters with people in Walmart just minding my own business.
Mhm.
And some of the people in there, and I'm not just saying Walmart, just in my experience. It could be anywhere, right? You can be in a grocery store and then anywhere public. And I noticed though that since I've started doing that, just centering myself and picturing myself in a golden bubble, I almost feel invisible. Like, do you
Yes.
grant? Yeah, it's like great. It makes me feel good. And maybe that's the intention I'm putting out there. Like, don't come in
Yes.
my bubble. Stay away from me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because not all people are nice. I mean, there's a lot of good people on the planet, but there's some people that are not nice too, unfortunately. And this is what we have to do. Did you ever experience anything while you were meditating that you would call? And I loved what you said in your intro that awakening happens in like bits and pieces, it happens in stages. That is so true. That resonated to the core of me because it's the truth. I think a lot of people are waiting for like this Kundalini
Yes.
awakening to happen. And then
Yeah.
it doesn't happen. And they're like, oh, I'm not being spiritual anymore. No, no. It
Yeah.
happens in stages over years and decades.
Yeah.
So when you were meditating, which I'm sure you do that often, right? Almost daily, you meditate. How long do you meditate for? And what's been your most euphoric and scary moment, if you had any, during meditation?
I love that. So, I meditate every day and I use Insight Timer. It's like a free meditation app. I like the ambient music and the singing bowls.
What's it
Sometimes
called
I'll do
again?
Insight Timer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's free. I have free meditations on there. You can do guided, you can
Oh,
do music. But there's a guy on there that does singing bowls with a cat. So if you see, if you look up singing bowls, you see a man with a picture and he's got a cat. They're beautiful. He has like gratitude one. It's just the
nice.
vibration. You can do
Yeah.
guided ones, and I love it because it's free. Like I don't want to pay for an app ever if I don't have
Yeah,
to.
some of them is so expensive too,
Yes,
like
so
$8 a month, or and then you have to buy things when you're in there and
yeah. Yeah, so there's lots of free stuff on there, so I use that, and I meditate at least 5 minutes a day. If I can get longer, great. It kinda depends on what I'm doing. So, when I was in my shamanism course, I meditated every day for, like, 20 minutes because we had this whole visualization of you going into your tree of life and getting into your sacred inner garden, and so I was really working on building that for myself so that I could be there and it felt real and it was like
yeah,
mine. It was like really building that up. So it kind of depends on that.
right.
Um, and so that I think the most interesting, I guess, meditation story is that I was working on trying to learn. I didn't know any of my spirit guides. This is when I was in my early 20s. Actually, I think I'm still a teenager. And I was working with someone in my pagan circle group I was talking about, and they were trying to get us to learn our spirit animal guide, which they were Native American. So I will say that so people aren't like super offended. And they were teaching us with drumming and, how to meditate and all this stuff. Super fun. And I'm like totally convinced that it's a cat. I'm like, oh, it's definitely a cat. Like, I look like a cat. I love cats. I've never met a cat that doesn't love me. Like, went in, I'm like, definitely, all like cocky and assured, annoying teenager self. And I get to the whole meditation, and it's like, there's a hole in the ground, and your animal's supposed to emerge, and it doesn't.
Mm.
And I'm the only one that doesn't
Oh,
emerge.
no.
And so then I'm like, why did that happen? And the teacher was basically like, well, you said it was going to be this thing and it's probably not. And now it doesn't want to show itself to you. I was like, oh my
Oh,
gosh. Yeah. So then I tried on my own. The next time I tried, I got a paw. And then the final time I got a
oh
wolf,
goodness.
which is not a
Oh,
cat.
right.
Like not even close to a cat.
No, not even close.
Nope. And then that's my oldest spirit guide that I know by name and by connection, and they've been with me forever. And it totally makes sense because everything you read about, like a wolf, a person with a wolf totem or spirit animal
Yeah,
guide,
yeah.
they're a natural teacher. And I was literally
Yes.
in college to be a English teacher, and I still teach about crystals. So it was like
Yeah.
totally made sense, but I was just being dumb and like, I'm a cat, you know?
So now the wolf is like you're familiar, right?
Yeah, like my guide, always
Yeah.
with me. I have had other animal guides come in and out. I believe we have so many guides, like,
Yeah.
sometimes you
Yeah,
have
I
to go
agree.
through and be like, "If
Yeah.
you're not of the highest consciousness, I need you to back off because it's too many." But yeah, definitely.
Anything scary, like, I hate using the word scary, but anything concerning where you felt something was off and you had to be like wary of it? Because while we're meditating, we're open and the veil's
Yeah.
very thin. We're in a trying to be in a theta state anyway. So has anything ever come in that concerns you? I guess is the better way to put it.
No, and the reason being is that, I always say that Archangel Michael is my homeboy. And
Yeah.
he's my number one guy. I work with other angels, but I call on him multiple times a day. And before I meditate, I call on Michael. I'm like, okay,
Nice.
Archangel Michael, come be with me. I also call on my spirit guides of highest consciousness and my guardian angel. So they're all there. And I learned this from my friend Laura. She was basically like, when you meditate, when you do things, you're open to anybody coming in. Ask your guardian angels to let you know if they're good or not. Like, if anybody comes through and you're like, I don't know if you are who you say you are, don't rely on yourself. Like, ask your guardian angels, is this who they say they are? She also said to always make sure you release or get rid of any false light beings. So, those are beings or energy
Oh.
that are pretending to be an angel, but they're not.
See, and that's bingo right there. That concerns me. And I love that you mentioned that because a lot of these orbs that people are experiencing in the skies, um, I've had a lot of people in authority tell me that they're not all angelic, that
Yes.
they're pretenders. So you kind of have to be careful with things like that. How do you differentiate? Do you just use your intuition in knowing, like, because like you said, you're a candle in the
Yeah.
dark and things want to attract. Um, but you can sense, right, what's not genuine and what is, right?
Sometimes, and even the most intuitive of us can be fooled, and I think
Yeah.
that's important. If you listen to any stories about hauntings and possession, like those people were often fooled. Like a lot of times, an entity will say it's one thing when it's not, and so I think before venturing into like communicating with other spirits, we have to really know our own spirit team so
Yeah.
well. So you know who's on your team and you can trust your team to act like a bouncer. That's how I imagine it. So it's
Oh,
like
I
I'm
like that.
sitting, I see my wolf, I see my guardian angel. I ask
Yeah.
Archangel Michael to be at my back with his fiery sword and
Yeah.
shield, feel very protected. And then it's like, okay, let's see who's coming through. And if and I always say, I give you free will to my spirit guides of highest consciousness and my guardian angels, Archangel Michael, to release or get rid of any entity that is coming in that is not what it say it is or is not for my highest good. I always say that. And so
Yeah.
I think that really helps because the truth is that like energy, like they're just attracted to the energy. And
Yeah.
my shaman teacher, Alberto Violdo, he had a really interesting story about how he was working in person with students, and these students were like, "We met these light beings, and they're so good for you, and they want to connect with everybody. Come into our tent and let them connect." And his jaguar, which is his spirit animal, like was like, "No." Like his spirit
Oh,
animal was it
wow.
was in front of him, is very protective, would not let him connect with these beings. Turned out later they were not what they said they were, and they were just trying to feed off of people's energy.
Oh, goodness.
But it's because he had such a strong connection with his one guide, and that's all you need is to connect with one angel or one guide and fully trust them. They can be that buffer and that protector for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love in your book too how you cover topics like intuition, meditation. You cover, and you give people like exercises to do to ask questions about their experience. And I really loved your book. I loved it. I want to talk about chakras. You talk about that in your book, and the crystal connection. Do we have to work to connect the chakras to crystals, or can we just be attracted to them and have a relationship with them without doing that work?
Yeah, we can definitely not have to involve the chakras. Chakras are going to do what they do regardless of what you do with them. And
Mhm.
my Reiki teacher, she had an Indian guru teacher, and he said that Westerners, he would laugh and say, Westerners just think they can do this one class and all of their chakras are open. He's like, but it's a lifelong journey. Like your
Oh, yeah.
chakras, they're changing, they're shrinking, they're growing, they're spinning, they're going counterclockwise. Like they are
Mhm.
not, they're going to change. And so, no, people don't have to work with them. Do the crystals sometimes naturally just connect with your chakras and help you? 100%, especially clear quartz. Clear quartz works with all the
Yeah.
chakra system. And so is it being working with clear quartz going to help your chakras? Yeah, whether your intention was to do that or not, it's going to. And that's part of why it feels so good sometimes to work with certain crystals because it'll help that energy that you're missing.
Now, in your book, you mentioned that because I'm a big root chakra person, like and third eye, those are
I
like
see
the
all
two
the
I
red.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you're wearing red, you got red.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
bringing the color
yeah.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I guess I do it not even realizing, right? But you mentioned in your book again about clear quartz. Do you think that's the best stone to kind of cover all your bases, really? Because again, people can't afford maybe, or they don't have the time. So just get a nice like connection with clear quartz and do all the things we said to do, right? See, and that's
100%.
another reason I love your book, is because you really go through each one of the chakras, the throat chakra, the third eye. And the third eye kind of concerns me, and maybe you can clear this up. I was always under the impression, from what I read and felt, we have a lot of fluoride in the water, and that calcifies
Mm.
the the third eye, and the pineal
Yeah.
gland or
Mhm.
pineal gland, however people want to pronounce it. Um, what do you do to decalcify that and open the third eye? What's a good crystal to help us do that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I like that. Your upper, so you have, so for people listening that maybe aren't as familiar, you have like your upper chakras, which are like
Mhm.
your throat, your third eye, your crown, and then there's some people believe in beyond that, like cosmic
Right.
chakras that go beyond the
Yeah.
body. So those three, they are all going to be connected. Right. So, like the way the chakras work is they're these like spinning wheels, metaphorically speaking, in your energy and your aura, and they're all connected by like a shashuna or like a light line. And
Mm.
so, like, if the throat chakra is cut off, then the third eye may not be working
Ah,
as like it should either. So, like, they're really all connected. So, what I always suggest is people, like you said, the root chakra is where it all begins. I always suggest people start working their way up. So, you work with like understanding the root chakra, wearing maybe the color red, working with like a stone that you feel is good for your root chakra,
yeah.
which could be like smoky quartz or a red jasper. It could be, anything that feels right to you, and clear quartz will work for all of them. And then you start to kind of work up that line. But one of
Yeah.
the things that I think is really helpful is to lay the crystals like straight on the physical third eye. Like lay down in
Mm.
meditation, put the crystal that you feel drawn to, could be like a clear quartz, like
Oh,
straight
I
on
love
where
that.
like the third eye would be, and like allow it to cleanse and clear out that energy and envision that. There's music for third eyes. You can listen to like different frequencies that's specifically for the third eye,
Yeah.
but I really do think it's all connected. So I always like, I can tell like this, like if I'm living in a lot of anxiety and living in a lot of fear, my root chakra is off. Okay. So like that's where fear lives in the body. So then I'm like, okay, so I need to like give that chakra some extra love. Well, I'm going to have to give extra love to like everybody, or like I'm not
Yeah.
feeling like in my own power. I'm feeling weak. I'm feeling like I
Right.
can't. That's my solar plexus chakra, but I got to get up there. I got to like start at the root chakra, go through the sacral. What's also fun too, if people ever have the opportunity, is getting an aura photo done where you can see
Mm.
like the different
Yeah.
colors and the different chakras too. That's also very helpful. But I think basically because I'm Reiki trained, I think no matter what is in the water or what's in the food, because we eat a lot of like strange GMO
Oh,
food and whatever.
yeah.
I think that that can all be changed and broken up and released through energy healing. And crystals are energy healing. That's how they work. They are really helping your energy, whether you want them to or not.
I
So,
love that. I love that. So I know some folks that buy crystals according to how they look. If they're
mhm.
pretty, is that okay to do, or or should you hold it like you're in a shop or wherever and feel the connection? Maybe there's a crystal that's not so pretty that you vibrate with, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be attractive for you to choose it.
Yeah, like Moldavite is ugly. The one that you have in your wallet, I think it's an ugly crystal, but it's
Yeah, it
very
is.
special. It's very
Yeah.
special, and a lot of people use it to connect with like cosmic consciousness and like extraterrestrial type and starseed type information. And so it obviously has like this really deep spiritual part to it, but it's not really pretty. And so I think, however people start the crystal journey is great. Like if you're attracted to them just as jewelry, that's fine. If you want the biggest, prettiest amethyst tower because that's just so beautiful and look good in your house, that's fine too. The crystal's energy is there regardless of whether it's a pretty one or not. And so if you have the opportunity to go to a shop, that's honestly the best way to
Yeah.
really find a crystal. It's so hard online to know like the energy. Like you just kind of have to choose off of looks at
Yes.
that point.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
That's why I kinda hesitate to buy any crystals online. I always thankfully, we have a beautiful crystal shop right in town, and I just love going in there and holding it, and, she has little signs what they mean because it's so difficult to remember the meaning of, like,
Yeah.
all of them. It really is, and then you go through also the interpretation of colors, right? In the crystals as well. So does that matter when we're thinking of starting like a crystal healing session or whatever you want to use them for? Should we think about that color, or is it more the connection to the stone regardless?
I think color helps people connect to their intuition.
Mm,
So I have an oracle deck called the Cosmic Creator Oracle. And when I created that with my friend who's an artist, I talked about with her that I think the way people read oracle and tarot decks, why they're so attracted to them is because of the photos or the pictures and the colors and the
yes.
symbolism. I
Yeah.
feel like that really helps people open their third eye because there's their actual eyes, like you're taking it in with your eyes. But I think that
Mm,
opens up people's intuition. And so if color and color theory makes sense to somebody, like, okay, root chakra is red. So I could work with any red stone and it'll help me. Yeah, that's totally okay to do. And if you don't want to do that and that doesn't work for you, that's fine too. But I feel like a lot of my mission is to try to get people to tune into their own intuition,
yeah.
however they want to. And we think about like elementary school and kids have a favorite color and they get to like choose the color, and color means so much to like a child. If you give
Yes, it
like,
does.
the blue kid the green cup, they're like, why you give me the green cup? And it's because they're so connected to color, and then we
Yeah.
lose that as adults because it's like childish, but it's not.
Right.
Like there was a
Right.
probably a reason why you were a blue kid, because you really needed that blue in your life.
That's so true. I mean, think about it. Children are so intuitive to
Yes.
begin with. So that's such a good cue to use. So let's talk about your tarot card thing because I'm so interested in that. You said you have over 100, and of course you buy them now like as a collector, right? So
Yes.
each deck, the artistry of it, things like that. But do you have like one deck that you read from, or do you just use any one that you're feeling?
Well, so here's the thing is that I live a mile away from one of the only metaphysical libraries in the country.
What?
And yes. And they are like my supplier. Like
Oh
it's a
my
bad
goodness.
it's a good relationship we have. They call me the card lady. They're like, "Oh, here comes the card lady," and they'll show me all the things they saved. But basically, we have a really lovely town and people donate metaphysical materials to them. And like about a
Oh,
year ago, they got a whole bunch of metaphysical materials from a library in New York that closed. And so they have this whole free section They have a shop section that the money goes straight to
Wow.
the library, and then it costs me $30 a year to be a library member where I can check out
Oh,
books.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're lovely. But I go there and I exclusively buy secondhand cards only at this point from them. All the new cards I get because I work with different publishers and they send them to me. And so
Oh, nice.
I really don't spend that much. It sounds like a really crazy habit. You're like, you have 100 decks, but I only bought so many of them at full price, you know?
Right, right.
Yeah.
And you adopted the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, like, my one of my most recent ones I found at the Metaphysical Library was the Mother Peace Tarot, which is a circular tarot, made specifically in, like, the 1980s for women, and so it's, like, very feminine. The circle, it's like if the card's to the left or to the right or to it's like this whole interpretation, is super exciting find because you can still buy it new, but I didn't want it new. I wanted one from
Yeah, yeah.
1983. So it's like it was very important to me. But I use every day. I use my own deck, and right now I really love. I have it here. It's from Llewellyn. It's the Magic of Midwinter, and it's a Yule Christmas deck.
Oh, that looks
It's
lovely.
so good. It's beautifully illustrated, and it's not like sometimes you see something like this, you think it's going to be hokey or corny. It's not going to give a good reading, but it gives really good readings.
Oh, I'll bet. I'll bet. And Mort said he had an aura photo done, lots of purple. Yeah,
Nice.
those are cool. I've seen some of those photos and they're mind blowing. I've seen them on pets too and flowers.
Yes.
They
Yes.
do them on any living thing. When I was about 8, I started seeing auras and I didn't know what they were. I thought it was just like my eyes or the light because nobody talked about that stuff back then.
Right.
Nobody. They would lock you in a sixth floor of a hospital.
It's true.
Yeah. And as the years went by and I started like having an interest in tarot and doing those things, and I clearly saw them. And then the funny thing is, once I got married and had kids, I stopped paying attention to that. And they kind of just weren't as bright as they used to. Do you see auras now, like on folks? And is that a part of when you read folks' tarot cards? Like, what's that like?
Um, I try to turn off a lot of my
Oh, are
gifts.
we buffering? I think yeah, we
Okay.
buffer every now and then.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep.
Okay, so on a daily basis, when I go out and about town, I do my spiritual protection. I also close down a lot of my gifts. Um, and I think if anybody is listening, is like super intuitive or you're naturally psychic or clairvoyant, however you identify, it really is nice for you to learn how to kind of dampen or quiet your gifts so you're not going out and being drained by all the
Right.
information you're receiving.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, so I feel like so on my day to day, I don't really look for that, and I don't want to look for that because I'm trying
Yeah.
not to engage that ability unless I want to turn it on and during like a
Right.
meeting or something. And so, yeah, it's more like not so much when I do readings, but when I give Reiki, I will see. When I
Ah,
give Reiki, I go through the whole chakra system, and we always start at the heart, unless sometimes a client will be somewhere else, but almost always start at the heart. And we work with that chakra. I get a good feeling and understanding. I'll get information like what's going on. And then we either work up or down depending on the person. And that's really like I see all the colors of the chakras, but it'll always be
yeah.
like there's one that's more dominant. And something that's really interesting is whenever somebody in their hands, I see fire, it usually means that person's a
Ooh.
natural healer. Like they themselves could do Reiki or be a healer.
And you can see that during a session with
Yes.
someone or just okay, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. So what are you working on? You just finished your brilliant book and it's a truly a delight and we're going to have the link to that in the description of this on YouTube and any social media. And of course, running across the screen, you can reach Jenny at jennycbell.com. And for folks that are listening, it's JENNY CBELL.com, because we have a lot of FM radio listeners as well. So you just finished this book. And what do you have in the works next? Like, what are you thinking of doing? Are you writing another book? Are you focusing on your sessions that you offer people? What's up for you next?
Well, I run a private social media called Our Coven, and people can learn about that on the website. It's basically social media without all the ickiness because it's private, so you don't get people trolling you or trying to sell you
Nice.
ancestor readings or any of that stuff. So we do a live every month in there. We've been doing a weekly photo challenge. So right now we're doing like a Yule photo challenge where we're all taking today's picture was like a favorite like Yule decoration or ornament, and then everyone kind of shared
Oh,
about it. There's a whole library in there for people for like spells, rituals, the holidays, the moons, meditations. Basically, it's like a catch-all for everything I create goes in there. And
oh,
then I'm
nice.
there, yeah, and I'm there. I always aim to answer people's questions within 48 hours. So if someone's like a brand new witch and they're like, can I substitute this for this? I can answer that. It's built quite a nice community. We have about 100 people in there from all
Is
over
it
the world.
only is it only for people that are practicing, or can it be anybody that joins, or do you have to be like a witch?
No, we have had people, different spirits. Some people will call themselves a witch. Some people don't. They'll say they're witchy. We've had people who are closer to Buddhists in there. We had a Christian witch for a year with us. She was super, she really taught us a lot. But yeah, it's open to anybody on a spiritual path. I find most of the people that join are would consider themselves witch curious. Like they're
Yeah.
spiritual, they work with maybe crystals or
Yeah.
angels. They just got their first tarot deck and they're like, now what? And so they join the coven and we help with the now what. And then so I have that, and then I have a podcast every Sunday. It's called Cozy Coven Chats. And it's just a short podcast about what the energy is. I pull a tarot card for the week for the collective. I talk about like what I'm personally doing that week and on my path. We talk about herbs, stones,
Oh,
books,
nice.
just like whatever, just keeping it very real on there. But yeah, I have a book coming out called Divergent Witchcraft. So I'm
Oh,
going to be doing final edits on that book. That comes out June of 2026. And my big thing next year is I'm going to be in Portland for Spirit Northwest. It's their second time
oh,
doing Spirit
nice.
Northwest. So,
And just a quick summary, what's Divergent Witchcraft about?
yeah. So, I have noticed I identify as neurodivergent, and I have noticed that a lot of neurodivergent folks are interested in magic and witchcraft and spirituality. And I don't think that's coincidental. I think that's very natural for us. And so I wrote a book on beginners witchcraft with those people in mind. I was a
Mhm.
classroom teacher and I was trained in special education and inclusivity. And so using my teaching training, I made this book very accessible for anybody to learn. And so it's really a good overview of everything leading up to creating your own spell. Because a lot of times, what I noticed in books about witchcraft is they don't teach you how to create a spell. And I get a lot of new
Yeah, yeah.
witches in our coven who are like, do you have a spell for this or for that? And it's like they didn't ever get to learn how to make their own spell. They don't have that power. And so the book ends in that way where you learn.
Oh, that's gonna be brilliant. I can't wait to read that.
Thank you.
I'm a self-diagnosed neurodivergent too, so I completely get it.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, back in the day, there was no diagnoses for these things,
No,
30, 40 years ago, 50
no.
even, whatever. Nobody knew what these things terms were, and autism and all. Nobody
Yeah.
knew. Like
Especially
my
for
daughter,
girls.
yeah, absolutely. Like
Yeah.
my daughter's ADHD. She,
Yeah.
and she refuses to acknowledge it, but she's like, I'm not owning that. I don't want to own it because she sees it as a label, but
Yeah.
she is, and at least, I told her to use it as a tool rather than, something right. And now she goes around saying, my ADHD is it's my superpower. So I think that's kind of
Exactly. It is a
right.
superpower, and it's
Yeah,
not a label, it's empowering to know that you just work differently,
exactly.
and when you know how you work differently, your life can be better.
Right,
You know how it
exactly.
works.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and my son is like OCD, so, like, I think my whole family has some kind
Yeah.
of It's hysterical. But Heidi has a great question. When we were talking about, I'm going to do that water match thing. I love it. Do you need the water moving when you drop the matches in?
No, you want it still. So you want like a
Okay.
bowl. I use Corningware. Okay, I'm keeping it real. I use a piece of Corningware, but a bowl of water, any kind of, and you
Yeah.
fill it up. You have it on like a table, flat surface. Still, light your matches, drop them in.
Okay, cool. Because I think we have a lot of people that are okay. So yeah, there's a lot of folks. Heidi said she's got ADHD too. And
Yeah,
it's good to know that because
right.
like I have some friends that are dyslexic
Yes,
and they would be so embarrassed. Now they wear it as a badge and they tell you like you got to go easy, you got to go slow. I have dyslexia, and I struggle, and then I think it's good to be aware of these things because you help other people. Like I've worked in corporate America for so many years teaching instructional technologies, and I've run into so many people with dyslexia, and I always make adjustments for folks, but it doesn't bother me to do
no,
that. No, and it helps them, and I think your book is like going to do that, right?
that's my goal. My son has ADHD. He got diagnosed, and I was like reading all this information, and I'm like, oh, it's genetic. So then I start looking at myself,
Mm,
looking at my
yeah.
husband. I'm like, it's not him. And then I'm like looking at all the things, and I was diagnosed with the dyslexia where you turn numbers around, but
Ah,
I didn't get diagnosed until my very last math class in college. My professor was like, I've been looking at your work now for 2 semesters, and I realize you have, I think it's dyscalculia, I can't remember, where you're switching numbers around. I'm like, well, that would have been really nice to know when I was like 10, because I always struggled
yeah.
with math and I didn't know why. Like, I'm like, I did the work right. It's because I switched the
Right.
numbers around. I didn't see
Oh
that.
my goodness. That
Yeah,
is so brilliant. But at least you know now and you can work with it. You
exactly.
can work with it. Let me see if we have any other questions in here. Yeah, see, a lot of people are saying they were diagnosed uh back in the 80s. They didn't know. She was
Exactly.
diagnosed in college. Yeah. Yeah. Boy, oh boy. Sorry, just looking through the comments.
No, it's totally
Um,
fine.
so you do readings as well, right, Jenny? I just want to make sure we cover all your bases. What are your readings like? Do you do them on Zoom? What are they for? Are they your intuitive readings, tarot readings? Like, let us know. Because there's going to be people that want to get a reading from you. You're such a wonderful spirit. We can feel that right through the screen. Um, do they go to Jenny C. Bell to book these things? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, everything I do is through jennycbell.com. I have classes on Udemy. You can find them there. There's a crystal class for people that are interested. And yeah, I do my readings on Etsy. You can book Zoom readings with me through my website. But I also do them on Etsy. I call myself a fortune teller because I like to use lots of things. I'll use tarot, I use oracle. Sometimes I use charms, depending on like the question I get asked. I sometimes tap into like my own intuition.
Yeah.
Um, and then I do Reiki, also long distance healing Reiki for people like in other parts of the country that I can't have in person with me. But yeah, all of that is basically through Etsy or the website, either one. But the website, Etsy is so hard to navigate and find someone shop. So jennycbell.com is
Yeah,
way
that's the best
easier.
place to go. Is your Facebook group on Jenny C. Bell as well?
Yeah, Our Coven is actually on something called the Mighty Network, which is a private social media. So it's all through like either an app or online. It's totally off of regular mainstream social media.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just in case somebody wanted to join or
Yeah, I would love it.
ask you how to join. Yeah, that'd be great. Well, I want to thank you so much. It was such a joy speaking with you. When is your book coming out? Do you have a target date for that, the Divergent one?
Yeah, I think it's June 1st, 2026.
Good. Well, you have to promise me that you'll come back when you're doing pre-sales. I would love to
For
have
sure.
you back.
Yeah.
It's been such a pleasure. You're a
Yeah.
very
Thank you
special
so much.
person.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you,
thank you to
Jenny.
everybody listening too.
Of course. We'll be in touch, Jenny. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, dear. Bye bye. Well, that was absolutely fun. And I thank Jenny so much. And thank you all for tuning in. And of course, you've been listening to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And of course, Jen, thank you so much for sharing your profound wisdom with us today. You've given us not only a new perspective on crystals, but a powerful, practical pathway showing us how to transform from just a passive observer to an active partner with these incredible stones. So, to everyone listening, if you're ready to stop simply collecting crystals and you want to start truly activating your power within yourself, I highly recommend you pick up her book. I absolutely loved it. I highlighted a bunch of stuff. I'm going to go back and reread it and get myself some new stones too. I'm going to treat myself for Christmas to some new stones. So thank you all so much. God bless each and every one of you. I will see you tomorrow. And I also want to just let you know tomorrow's show is going to be incredible. So make sure that you pop in. I am going to have Mary Madrias on, and that's at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to talk about Akashic Records, living through the lens of them. And we heard a little bit about them today, and we're going to take a deep, deep dive into them tomorrow with a very profound and special teacher of them. So that's going to be super exciting for me as well. Gratitude to you, Heidi, and Benno, and Mish, and everybody else. I don't want to miss anybody that popped in the chat. Scrolling, trying to make sure. I know there's a lot of you that don't. Oh, Mort, thank you. God bless to each and every one of you. Please show up tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. God bless each and every one of you. I love you all dearly. Bye-bye.